Hi, I'm Rory Ronda. Welcome to the guidebook Neo Soul Guitar. In this course, I'd like to share some ideas, concept techniques, and grooves that I use when playing guitar in Neo Soul, Hip Hop, R&B, and the modern jazz styles of today. Bands like The Roots, D'Angelo, Slum Village, Tribe Called Quest, and producers like Jay Dilla, Madlib, and DJ Hi-Tech have taken a new and original approach to timing that has a major impact on modern guitar playing. We'll dig into this type of new soul phrasing and timing in several live performances. I'll show you the typical chords that are used in these styles and ways to voice them. We'll explore various fingerstyle techniques that you can use to spice up your guitar playing. For instance, how to use the thumb to play rhythm guitar. We'll also talk about guitar sampling, where you approach live guitar playing the same way a hip-hop producer would use audio software or sampling equipment. All these performances come with tabs, backing tracks, and extra information. Okay, let's start grooving. With this song, I'd like to inspire and help you to add more soul and groove to your guitar playing. We'll be using the chord changes of this song as a starting point. These chords demonstrate the typical feel and style used in both hip-hop, new soul, and even jazz. To be able to play this style naturally, we have to approach the subject not only from a harmonic perspective, but also rhythmically, which is equally important. The song is called Smile, and I hope this exercise will make you smile as well. So let's check out what kind of chords are there in this song. I'll run through them bar by bar. So in bar 1 we have D flat major 7 and E flat minor 7. Next is F minor 7 and G flat major 7, Then we have F minor 7 again. Then we go to G flat minor 7. And the last bar is F minor 7. And then we have on beats 3 and 4, E flat minor 7 and D7. Then you start over. So it's... So those are the main chords to Smile. I played 3-note chords. But if you listen carefully to what I played in the performance, you'll hear there's another element that's actually, there's a 5th under each chord. So I'll show them again. So we add a 5th below. The reason why I do that is that the 5th gives a kind of body to the chords. It makes it sound more jazzy, and really simple voicings can all of a sudden sound quite interesting, actually. So another thing that you can see is that what we're playing here is actually a harmonized scale. It's the D flat major scale that goes like this. But I'm playing it in chords. Up till G flat major 7. The only chord that's not in there is the G flat minor 7. That's the odd one out. So while I was making this composition, it dawned on me that this is actually a harmonized scale. So that gives that special flavor. There's one more element that we have to add to be able to play Smile. That's actually a single note line. So each time I'm playing a chord, I'm also playing a separate single note. So I'll play each chord and I'll show you the note that I'm playing. And actually all those notes are on the G string. So the first one is with the D flat major 7. Then we play a B flat. So that's on the 3rd fret. C is the next. Then D flat. Again D flat. One more time D flat. Last time D flat. And the last 2 chords, there's no note in between. So I'll show you one more time. One more thing I want to show you is the rhythm, how we play it with the right hand and with the pick. So I'll show you with each chord. So as you can see, we're actually hitting the lower string also one more time. That's all you need to be able to play this song. This is the guitar part for another song I wrote called Today. This is a hip-hop song featuring thumb and octave playing in the tradition of the great Wes Montgomery. The second section of the song has some interesting voicings. So today we can break down in 3 parts actually. So the first part is a bass line. We're doubling that. The second part is an octave melody, and there are also a couple of chords that are really interesting. So I'll start with the bass line that goes like this. So that's really simple. It's a G, an A B flat, and a C. And rhythmically it goes like. Now let's check out the octave melody. It has 2 parts. The first part goes like this. So the notes that I'm playing are G, A, B flat, D, and C on this position. There's another part to that melody, but before we get to that, we're actually playing 2 chords. The first one is a D7 sharp 9, sharp 5. Goes like this. And we resolve that one to D7 sharp 5. So let me play that first octave melody together with the chords so you can hear how that has to sound rhythmically. So that's part number 1. Then we have the bass melody again. Then we get to the second octave melody. It starts the same way. And now we get an extra part that sounds like this. The notes that I'm playing are B flat, A, G, F, and F again. And there's also a slide if you look carefully. I'll play it really slowly. So in the beginning, you hit the note with your thumb. Then we get that chord change again. So it's again the D7 sharp 9 sharp 5 to D7 sharp 5. But the next thing we play is a G minor 9 on the 10th fret. Like this. So let's put it all together and I'll show you. And then we finish it with the octave melody. That's part 1 of this song. There's another part, and that's actually a chord melody part, and I'll show you really slowly what chords we're playing. There's a little melody also in between. It goes like this. So this first chord, we could call that actually a C13 sus chord. It starts from the D string, and it's a 4-note chord. Then it resolves to a C7. And one thing that you might see is that there's actually no root in this chord. So it's not this, it's just this. Then we have a movement, and we could call that double stops. Double stops when you play 2 notes at the same time. It goes like this. So the top notes that you're actually playing are an A, B flat, C. And the lower notes are F, G, and A. Then the last part of this chord melody is a triad. And that's C triad. And the next one is a B triad. B major, C major, and B major triad. So I'll play the whole thing. In the second round, when you play that, you also play a triad, but it's the next inversion, a B major triad that's here. So that sounds together like this. And then the high B triad. I'll play it one more time. Okay, and one more obvious thing is, of course, I'm playing this whole song with the thumb. Why am I doing that? Because the thumb has a special kind of warmth it adds to the notes. And also you can drag the chords. So later on in this video, we're going to talk about that a little bit more, how we can change the timing of the chords, give them more flavor. So, for instance, if you hear this part, well, octaves playing with the thumb is a really nice way of doing it. When you get to these chords, you can really drag them. Of course, you could also do this with a pick, but with the thumb, it has an extra flavor that I really like to use. So that's the reason why I'm playing this song with the thumb. When I play in this style of music, I often make use of fingerstyle techniques. Especially when playing unaccompanied guitar, fingerstyle can give you a lot of possibilities. The next funk groove is an introduction into this world of fingerstyle guitar. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that was fingerstyle funk. I was actually playing a funk groove with the fingers of the right hand. And let's take a look what's happening there. So there's a bass line going on. The first note that I'm playing is actually a low E, not E string. And as you can see, I'm playing this with my thumb, like this. The next note is a low A. So we're taking the A on the 5th fret, low E string. The next one is a G. Then we have F sharp. And then we go all the way up to the 7th fret and play a B. And rhythmically we're doing this. The second round I'm adding an extra note. That's the E an octave higher. That's on the 7th fret, A string. So I'll play the whole bass line for you. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the bass line. At the same time, I'm also playing chords. And I'll show you the chords. The first one is E9, like this. The next one is A13. So that's on the 5th fret. We move down a whole step to G13. A half step down to F sharp 13. And the final chord is a B7 sharp 5. And I'm holding it like this. I'm actually skipping the A string when I play this chord. So those are the ingredients on the left hand. Of course, the interesting thing about this is what's happening on the right side, on the right hand. So I'll demonstrate it really slowly because this is quite a technique. So you could see this as an introduction to fingerstyle guitar. What am I doing there? I'm actually using the index finger for the downstroke. You could use the index finger, you could use 2 or 3 fingers. So I'll play it like this. This is the rhythm that you're playing for almost every chord. So I'll play the whole pattern now. So that's the first part of this groove. In the second part, there's an extra note in the bass line, and that's an E on the A string, 7th fret, like this. And I'll show you the timing again so that we know what we're doing. It goes like this. 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2. So you hear that timing, so it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. After the 4th count, there's that E note. And because it's there, that means that it's at the same time with the chords that I'm playing next to it. I'll demonstrate it. So that means that you have to use an interesting technique. That's actually plucking of the strings. We're plucking 4 strings at the same time. So if you take a look at my right hand, carefully, you can see it. I'll try to play it really slowly. So this is happening when we play E9. So the thumb is doing a double stroke there. The rest is the same as the first round. I really love to play these kind of grooves, especially with my fingers. You know, the sound, to really get into the instrument. You know, when you play with your fingers, you have easy access to all the strings. When I use a pick and I have to skip strings, you know, that is an extra challenge. With fingerstyle, you're already there. You can pluck strings, and you can do a lot more stuff actually with your fingers, especially when you're playing those funk grooves where you have bass notes, chords. You know, you can get a really rich guitar sound. The interesting techniques that we saw were actually the thumb. You can even alternate pick with the thumb. So you heard that in the bass line. You can strum with the rest of your fingers, and you can pluck, and you can really go far with that. Here I'm plucking, here I'm strumming. And that gives a really percussive flavor to the whole thing. You know, also when you're playing with a band, that can give a really nice groove and flavor to it. I'd like to look into chords and things you can do with the chords, how you can embellish them, and how you can make them sound more rich. In neo soul, you seldomly play the chord really like it is. You know, when you would see a song and they say play a C major 7, most players will do something. They won't just play a C major 7 like this, but they'll add notes, they'll extend it, or they'll play different inversions of the chords to make it sound more rich. Well, I have my own way of doing that. So first let's check out what kind of chords, you know, what chords do I play, that I like to play. Well, of course, the major 7 chords. For instance, we have G major 7 like this. Well, this is a really well-known shape. I'll show you a couple of other ones. This is also G major 7. This is another one. And I'll show you one last one like this. So in total, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 ways to play that chord. The minor 7 chords are also really important in soul music, in neo soul, in hip hop, in jazz. For instance, E minor 7. This is the most basic way to play it. Sometimes when a chord change has a minor 7, I'd like to choose to make that a minor 9. So when somebody would say, hey, play E minor 7, I would play it a little bit more spiced up like this. This is E minor 9. So I really love to play minor 9 chords. I'll show you one more way to play that. That's this. Also an E minor 9. Another thing to keep in mind, especially when you're playing with a band, is that you seldomly play chords with all the strings. You usually take a part of it. So I won't play an E minor 9 like this, but I would take, for instance, starting from the A string up to the B string. And the way you do that, that's something that has to do with your own musical taste. But seldomly you're going to play the whole chord, so keep that in mind when we go to the performance. Other chords I'd like to look at is the dominant 7 chords. For instance, D7. Well, this is a really basic way to play it. In neo soul, I would rather do it like this. Or maybe make a sus chord out of it. This is D sus 13. This is a really favorite chord because you can do a lot of stuff with it. So with this one chord, you can add all kinds of ideas. So let's see. So we have the major 7 chords. We have the minor 7 chords. Minor 9. This is also E minor 9. And we have the dominant 7 chords. Those are some of my favorite chords that I like to look at. So I'd like to look into different chord shapes for a given chord. Let's take C major 7, for instance. To play this chord, you have different options. You could play it in this way. You could play it like this. You could play it like this. All of those voicings, all of those fingerings are the same chord. It's all C major 7, but it does give you a different sound because of the order of the notes. And that's really handy as a compositional tool, or for arrangements. So if we would say, for instance, the groove would be like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all C major 7 in one single position, which is cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But let's see what happens when we use a different version of the C major 7 chord, what it can do for us musically. Let's try another one. So what I did there was trying out several versions of the same chord and use that as a way to explore a different sound. So it's really good to know at least 2 or 3 different shapes for a given chord. So let's take this one step further. Up to now, we've been moving around on the neck like this, playing several versions of the same chord, C major 7 in this case. What you can also do is move within a chord like this. So you could look at it in this way. Instead of playing the chord in a straight way, I'm actually taking my time to complete it. I'm playing first, which is actually a C major 7 add 9, and then I turn it into a C major 7. And another way to look at it is that I'm just using a hammer-on to finish the chord. Let's also do that with the next version of C major 7, the one that's starting from here. I'm embellishing the top note. That's what's happening here. And how does that sound in a groove? Well, let's try it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. I also added another chord, which was actually a F major 7, to illustrate how you can use this as a way to make really simple chords sound more rich, more alive. You know, it's the difference between doing, for instance, this, which is okay, it's cool, but listen to what's happening when I'm using more than one position for a chord and also using that movement within the chord, what it can do for the whole sound. So that's one of the things that I really like to do. Also improvise with it. You know, I know what the chord changes are of a given song, and then I look at what I can do with those chords. So one of the key ingredients when you're playing this neo-soul style is the use of hammer-ons and pull-offs. In the last example, I was already demonstrating that in a really simple way. So things like that last note that you hear, that top note, I don't actually play that with the pick. I'm hammering it on like this. So there's a downstroke with the pick, and then the last note I'm playing directly with my left hand. And we can take that a lot further because let's take a chord, for instance, E minor 7. If you look at this chord, you see that you have at least one finger that's available to do something with. With that pinky, with that finger, you can hammer on certain notes. The easiest thing to do in a minor 7 chord is using notes that are part of the pentatonic scale. And I'll show you really slowly. This is one option. So the pentatonic scale, if you would play it separately, would look like this. That's a part of the E minor pentatonic scale. I'll show you again with the chord. And this is a technique that you hear a lot in old soul music. Of course, Jimi Hendrix was really somebody who used that a lot. You know, the use of hammer-ons and movement within the chords. I'd like to show you an example with two chords, E minor 7 and C major 7. And I'll use the hammer-on and pull-off technique. So hammering on is hitting it, but you also have the opposite. You know, you have a chord, and you let go of that finger. And also, this movement is something that you don't do with your right hand. You don't use the pick for that. It's all happening with the fingers of the left hand. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So what was happening there, I was playing the minor pentatonic notes within the E minor 7. And you can do this while strumming a rhythmic pattern. Because you're using hammer-ons and pull-offs, you can move that separately from what's going on in the strumming of the right hand. So that's really cool. Also did the same thing for the C major 7, and there I took two of the versions of the C major 7 chord that are easy to hammer on. This one is really simple. With the other C major 7, I showed you this before, I'm doing this. Here you can also move within that chord, and the notes that you pick are usually part of the given scale. So with the E minor 7, it's E minor pentatonic. When you're in C, you can, for instance, use notes from the C major scale. And the way you do this, that's also a matter of personal taste. Usually I'm taking the notes that are closest to the chord, so you don't make it too difficult, you know? Just keep it really simple. Here you do the same. So this style, this way of playing is something that you hear a lot when you listen to new soul records. You always hear guitar players doing stuff like that. And I like to do it too. Another thing that I like to use a lot to embellish chords, to give more flavor to a composition, is the use of double stops. And with double stops, I mean two-note chords. It's like tiny chords that I can use between chords or to connect them. So the simplest way to do that is using the top E string and the B string. And you could play pentatonically. So let's say we're back in E minor 7, and we have C major 7 after that. What I would do in a situation like that is using this. So that pattern is really well known. You know, you move pentatonically, and it's parallel, so both notes move in exactly the same way. That's one way to play double stops. Another way, which is maybe more interesting melodically, is by using notes that are in a certain scale. So it's actually the same thing we talked about with Smile, harmonization of a scale, but then only two notes. So you have to know your scales well. But I'll show you a simple example. Say we're in the key of G major, then what I could use, for instance, is these two, which is an F sharp and a D. The next one would be a G and an E. Those are the next notes in the scale. So like this. So all the notes that I'm playing are moving along the G major scale. Well, how does this sound in a neo-soul context? Let's try another example. Now, again, use E minor 7 and C major 7. And then I'll try to put some double stops in between. You can listen to that, and maybe it can inspire you to check this out. One, two, three, four. With the following song, I'd like to show you a way to enrich your guitar chords and to add melodic movement. By using diverse voicings, it's possible to turn ordinary chord progressions into full arrangements. So this song contains all of the techniques we have been talking about. Let's start with the beginning. That's a double stop pattern. It goes like this. The notes that I'm playing are mainly from the D major scale. And with a double stop, you play two notes at the same time. In the beginning, I'm playing actually a D on the 10th fret, high E string. So the first steps are like this. It's a hammer on from the 10th to the 12th fret. The next one is a double stop that has an A, and that's on the B string, 10th fret. I play this with the middle finger, and then I hammer it on with the ring finger on the 11th fret G string. So the first part is, and then the next part is. Up next is the chords. The chords are G major 7. And as you can see, I'm also playing that in that dragged way. So I'm playing actually first the G major 7 at 9, and then hammering on that last note. And that's a B on the B string, 12th fret. Next chord is an A major with a G in the bass, and it goes like this. Every time I'm moving from chord to chord, I'm actually picking a top note. So when you hear this, I'm playing the high E string again before I go to the next chord. The next step is a melody note. I slide from the 10th fret to the 12th fret on the high E string. Then I take another chord. That's a G flat minor 7. And also here I use a hammer on. So in this whole song, the whole time, I'm playing hammer-ons and pull-offs. So that's the thing that you'll see with most of the chords. I'll show you again. So we come from this chord. Then another hammer-on before we go to the next chord. The next chord is, you could call it a C with a D in the bass string. Another way to call this is a D9 sus. But I like to see it as a C chord with a D in the bass. The next chord is a D13 flat 9, like this. So I'll play it one more time. Here I'm playing this chord with the thumb. You can play it like this also. So that was the first round of this A part. The second round has similar chords, but the embellishments are different. So I'll run through them step by step. We start again with the G major 7. Right after that, we play a chord melody, and it goes like this. What am I playing there? First, I'm playing a G major 7 on the 10th fret. Then I play G major 7 that starts the 12th fret, and we do a hammer-on top. A separate note, that's a D on the high E string on the 10th fret, and then we go to the next chord, which is A over G. So I'll show you one more time. Then we go to G flat minor 7, again with that same embellishment. Then we have that D sus chord, or the C with a D in the bass, and D 13 flat 9. Here I'm playing the complete chord, so also with the top E string. So you get this. This is the whole part. Then we go to the B part of the song. First, we have a G major 7 at this position. Right after that, we play a melody, which is D, E, and then G flat. Go to the next chord, and that's a G flat minor 7. So this is the combination. Here I'm playing a variation on the G flat minor 7 chord. I actually play the minor third also on top. And why am I doing this? This because it's the melody. So the melody is actually, and then I go to E minor 7. So together that sounds like. So we landed now on an E minor 7 chord. There I'm also playing a melody. So actually these chords contain movements. Here with the G major 7 it was D, E, and G flat. And with the E minor 7 is, that's G, A, B. Before I move on to the next chord. That next chord is B minor 7. After we've played the B minor 7, I'm doing a kind of hammer-on movement, which are all pentatonic notes. So this is the B minor 7 chord, and with my fingers I can actually play a pentatonic scale like this. And I'm playing apart from that. Also look at my right hand. You can see that I'm not hitting every note, so I'm using a lot of hammer-ons. And also pull-offs. So let's play that whole thing together. This whole part, we also repeat that with minor changes. So the second time, we also play G major 7 with again that same melody. Now we just stay on the G flat minor 7. We wait, and then we go to E minor 9 through an F minor 9, like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4. First I played an F minor 9 at this position, and then I move a half step down to E minor 9. So together it sounds like this. close off with this chord. We've seen that same chord here. Here it was actually a C with a D in the bass. Here it's a G with an A in the bass. And there are really a lot of ways to name this chord. You could also call this an A9 sus. So this is the last chord, and then we have one small thing which is an octave melody that goes like, the notes I'm playing are A, B, D, E. So let me play the last part. You can hear this whole thing together. And then you start over. So that's this example of chord embellishments. And you can see there's so many stuff you can do with it. So a lot of variations you can add to relatively simple chords. You can make a whole arrangement out of that. So this is another thing that I do a lot when I play neo-soul style guitar. This is the whole part slow. 1, 2. This is a song that feels like an old soul jazz classic, mixed with hip-hop beats. Pay close attention to the feel and rhythmic placements of the chords and melodies. There's also a riff in the beginning that doubles the bass line. Let's look into the intro first. The intro is a single note melody that's actually doubling the bass guitar. So it starts like this. All these notes are part of the E minor scale. So this song is in the key of E minor. And actually these notes are pentatonic notes. Then we get, so that's a chromatic passage. This part is actually another hammer-on. So you hit this note and the other one is hammered on like this. So again another hammer-on. This is the first half of the melody. Then you get. So first there is a single note line, and then there is a small octave part. These notes are pentatonic notes. And then we get E and D octave. B and A octave. And you can notice that I'm sliding towards the notes. So I'm actually doing this. I'm hitting these. So I'm sliding towards this note. So instead of playing this note straight, I'm actually sliding towards it. Then we have one more part left, and that's a series of triads. The first one is a G major triad. The next one is a C major triad. And the one after that is a D major triad. You could also see this as a G major chord, an A minor 7 without the root, and a B minor 7 without the root. And together it will sound like this. And we also go in the opposite direction. That last one, I'm actually sliding towards it again. Then we have a couple of closing chords to finish this intro. C major 7 add 9. This is one of my favorite chords. We're using that one. The next chord is a B7 sus. You could also see this as a minor 7 chord, actually. So that's really interesting. And the last one is a B7 flat 9, and you hold it like this. I'll show you how to play that in one go. So that's the intro. The A part starts with G major 7. And actually all the chords that I'm playing are embellished, more or less. This chord, the G major 7, I play like this. So again, I have that kind of lazy feeling, like the chord isn't there at once, like this. From G major 7, I move to F major 7 in this way. So actually I'm moving chromatically backwards. G major 7, G flat major 7, F major 7. A little chord melody part. What am I doing there? I'm actually playing an F major 7 in a different voicing and different fingering. Using a pull off to come to the next note. So at the top you're hearing a high E, 12th fret, high E string, and then a D on the top string. Then a G and an A, and that brings you to the next chord, which is an E minor 7. So let me play the whole thing again. You can hear how everything is connected. The next part is another chord melody. It's another embellishment of the E minor chord. We go to E flat major 7 to F major 7. And it sounds like this. Also note that I'm sometimes playing a top string note as a kind of embellishment. So you hear the chord, and then I'll play that last note a little bit later. So try to listen to the timing of all these chord patterns. And you can hear really clearly that I'm purpose, I'm kind of slowing chords down. I'm playing them a little bit behind the beat. And this is something that's really used a lot in hip-hop music, nowadays, in neo-soul. Chords are never actually played straight on the beat. It's always a little bit late and stretched out. And we'll go into that concept a little bit more later on. So let's continue with this song. The next part is actually a C major 7. I'm playing the top note a little later again, so the high E string. Then I go to a E flat diminished 7. Then I move that up 1.5 step, which is actually an inversion, which is a cool thing you have with diminished chords. You can just move them around on the neck and you will juggle the order around, but it's actually the same chord every time. So here we're moving from E flat diminished 7 to G flat diminished 7. So it sounds like this. Little melody before we get to the next chord, which is a E minor 7. Movement again. Then we get to a new chord, which is a sus chord. G sus to G. It's actually G7 sus, G7. And this position is on the 10th fret, A string. So let me play the whole thing again. And especially these two chords are so lazy. So if I would count 1, 2, 3, 4. So keep that feeling in mind. We're using that a lot in this song. So that was actually the first half of this part. Let's play the second half. Again, a C major 7, E flat diminished 7, G flat diminished 7, A flat diminished 7. So you get this. All right, now the last part. First, I'll play that for you. You can hear it because it's a really interesting chord arrangement. And it contains a lot of concepts we've already been talking about. So it contains inversions and movement within the chords. And it gives a really cool jazzy flavor. It sounds like this. So if we break that down, what's happening, we're actually looking at a couple of inversions of the E minor 7 chord and related chords. So the first one is E minor 7 on the 7th position. Then we move to the next one through a melody. So those notes are G, A, B, D. Also, what I have to say is that instead of hammering on, what we've been doing up till now, I'm explicitly playing these notes. Here we are at the next step. This is actually a G major 7, but because we're hearing an E in the bass, I would look at this as an E minor 9 chord, which is another variation on E minor 7. And we move up one more step, and that's this chord. This is an E minor 11. It's also a variation on an E minor 7 chord. So I'll show you how we'll get to there. Here I'm at the E minor 9 again. I let go of the top note, which is actually moving from G flat to E. Then we have E minor 11. Also here you let go of the top note. So you move from an A to a G. These two notes. We go back to the E minor 9. We let go again. Go from G flat to E. And then we have the last part. So this is a really small version of an E minor 7. And the last part is this chord. And this is an E minor 11 again, but then in a lower position. So let me play the whole thing, then you can hear how everything is connected. So that was the last part of this song. If we want to create a guitar part suitable for this style, we have to dive into the domain of this thing called timing. This is perhaps the most important aspect, but also the hardest to explain, because it's very subtle and very personal. The best way I can show you is by using sequencing software, where you can see a grid, usually divided in quarter, 8, or 16th notes. Musical elements, in this case a guitar track, are placed on that grid. First, I'll let you hear the very basic beat I'm using. It's easier to hear what is going on with a simple beat. It's just a kick and a snare drum. And also note that the kick and snare fall exactly on the grid. So this is the kick, and this is the snare drum, and together they sound like this. So that's our groove, that's the beat we're playing the guitar part on. Next up, I'll play the track with the main guitar part. I've tried to play this guitar part on the grid as much as possible. And it's kind of rigid, maybe a little bit too rigid or stiff for the style that we're playing, but in this way, you can really see what's happening when we're moving the timing around. So I'll go to our clean guitar part together with the beat. That sounds like this. I marked part of it that we can loop, so it's easy to loop that and we can check what's going on. So if you look at the kick drum here and the snare drum, you can see that the guitar part is mainly on the grid. So if we see the grid lines, you can see it falls nicely within the grid. And that's also what you hear with the kick and the snare. I'll let you hear it one more time, then you can see that. So here we go. Let's dive into this part. So I'll select the guitar part. This is where the kick drum is on the 1. So if you look at the wave shape, this is actually the first chord that I'm strumming. So I'll let you hear it without the beat. So it sounds like this. Now together with the beat. So you can hear it falls nicely within that beat. I played the same guitar part with a thumb instead of a pick. So that's actually the next track that we're going to look at. And it sounds almost the same, but slightly more relaxed, more loose. So let me show you. We'll start with the beat again as an intro, and then we'll get to the whole guitar part. So this is the guitar part I played with the thumb. And if we compare the first guitar part and the part with the thumb, let me zoom in and I'll show you. It's a subtle difference, but also if you look at the shapes, at the wave shapes, you can see it's slightly more relaxed, more easygoing, which fits this style a little bit more. So I'll stretch out the wave shape. So if you look at this phrase here on the 1, I'll let you hear the clean guitar part. And now listen to the one with the thumb. And it's even better to hear this without the beat. And we'll go back and forth. This is the clean part, and I played that one with the pick. And now I'll let you hear the one with the thumb. So even when we have the intention of timing it in the same way, the difference between playing with the pick and the thumb is really, you can really hear it. It gives some more fluidity. Well, let's take it one step further. What would happen if we would move this part around on the grid? Because in hip-hop and in neo soul, you know, if you hear a guitar part, it's seldomly exactly on the beat. Usually it's a little bit behind. So we can illustrate that by just moving this wave shape around. So I'll take the part with the thumb, and then we're going to move it a little bit and see what that does for the sound. So let me zoom in. All right, so here we go. This is the thumb part, and let me just first play the way it is with the beat, and then we're going to move it while that's happening. So here we go. So here you see the grid points. I'm going to take the grid away and just move it and see what happens. So here we go again. So listen carefully to the guitar part. I'll move it slightly to the right, just a tiny bit, and see what that does for the groove. Still, it sounds really nice. You know, it's still within the rhythm, just more relaxed and more with that deliberate, slow timing. So let's go one step further, see what happens when I move it to the right again. See how far we can go with this. Well, already you can hear that this is a little bit too much. We're out of sync now with the beat. So the margin that you have to shift the timing is not that big, but still you can do a lot within that micro timing. So let me take it back to the beginning. And then what I'll do, I'll see what happens when we do it the opposite direction. What happens when we time it a little bit too soon. So first we'll listen to the original groove again, and then we'll move it around. All right, I'll move it to the left now, tiny bit. Well, as you can hear it, also gives you some interesting sounds. You know, it's a matter of musical taste, your own preferences, but you can see if you time it a little bit soon, also that can give a special flavor. And what's so interesting about this concept is that when you, in a live situation, you change the rhythm on purpose, that will have an effect on how the rest of the beat sounds. So we can also look at towards it in the opposite direction. What is the guitar part doing for the rhythm, for the beat? So I'll go back to the original one. We'll listen to that shortly. Try to feel how the beat sounds, and then we'll move it around again, and you'll notice that it's as if the drummer is doing a different thing. He's timing it differently. But in actuality, the track is exactly the same. All right, I'll move it a little bit to the right. Then I'll move it back again. A little bit to the left. Somehow your musical reference changes, and it almost feels as if the snare drum is on a different spot now. But if we look at the wave shape, nothing happened there. So that's a really interesting thing of playing like this. Well, the point I want to make, why am I showing you this, is that we can also have this attitude in our playing when we're doing it live, real time. We can take a guitar part, we can manipulate the timing in the way we like. We can start a little sooner or a little later than the actual groove, the actual grid, or we can even stretch out the chords. You know, and together with the methods that I showed you about embellishing chords, adding chord melody, we can get a total rich arrangement. So even simple guitar chords, chord progressions can become something really special, really like a musical composition. In the hip-hop and soul music we hear nowadays, musical elements are timed in a very peculiar way. The groove is instantly recognizable. Musical phrases typically are shifted slightly away from the regular beat, like we've seen in the section about sequencing. We can also take this approach when we're playing live. I'd like to show you this with the following example, where we combine a simple chord progression with a melody line. We'll manipulate the timing of these elements to create rhythmic tension and release. So this chord arrangement is a combination of simple chords and a melody line. And what is especially interesting is the way I time that. That's actually what this thing is about the most. How am I placing the chords and melody on the beat? So first of all, let's check out the chords. The first one is C major 7. The next one is D minor 7. E minor 7, then an F major 7, and this is a free note chord. I hold it like this. So I skip the rest of the notes. Then we go back to E minor 7, D minor 7, and then we have an inversion of C major 7. And the last step is a B flat major 7. And we're back at the beginning, which is C major 7. So those are the chords. If you listen carefully, you can hear that I'm playing them in a particular style, in this way. So I'm also using the hammer-on approach, and I talked about this earlier. So I'm actually kind of postponing the complete chord. I'm first playing a C major 7 add 9, and then I'm hammering on the final E to make the chord complete. Then it's a C major 7. So I'll play the chords for you, and then you can hear what the groove is. So also here at the C major 7, I'm using the hammer-on. So that's one of the things that's really interesting about this groove. Also, when you would hear the beat, every time I'm a little bit on the late side. So you hear like 1, 2, 3, 4. So keep that in mind. Well, this is only half of the complete arrangement. The other part is the melody. It's really simple melody. Let me show you. So that's the melody, and it's maybe the handiest to show it with the chords under it, really slowly. So I play a C major 7 first. That last note in the C major 7 is an E, and that's also the start of the melody. So when I move from C major 7 to D minor 7, I'm letting the chords go. You don't have to play the chords and the melody at the same time, but everything follows so quickly that it feels as if the chords are happening at the same time with the melody. So I'll show you again. So we move on to E minor 7 with this melody. So first I'm holding an E minor 7. The top note of the E minor 7, which is a B, it's on the 7th fret high E string, is also a part of the melody. So that really fits into this chord connection. You go from E minor 7 to that small F major 7. The beginning note is a B on top. Then we have a G on top. And then we move to the next chord, which is a F major 7. And we have the E, which is the major 7 of F. Then we go the opposite direction, but we also have a different melody. This is another version of an E minor 7 chord. Here the 7 is also on top, so it's the D on the 10th fret of the high E string. Most of these notes are lying within the chord, so that's really handy. Actually, what I'm playing here is like an E minor 7 arpeggio in the opposite direction. Then we go to the next chord, which is a D minor 7. We go back to this note. So. Then we land on the C major 7. We have a G note on the high E string separately, and then we finish with the B flat major 7. So let me play that backwards direction. So all of this sounds pretty jazzy. It's really a chord melody arrangement. But because we're busy in a kind of hip-hop groove, let's check out how that timing is with both the chords and the melody. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm really exaggerating the chords, taking my time to really let them sound out. And I'm also busy with dynamics, so you can hear that some of the chords are pretty loud, other ones are a little bit softer. So, and that way I also separate the melody from the chords, so it's almost as if two guitar players are playing. I always like to do that kind of stuff. When you play this chord, see, you have that hammer on. You can use that as many times as you want. So a lot of this stuff is hammer-ons and pull-offs. That's really an important part when you're playing neo-soul, you're playing in that hip-hop style. And you're also exaggerating the chords, and you're also placing them a little bit later on the beat, or sometimes earlier, like this. You know, and the way you do that, that's a matter of personal taste. That's something you can recognize a musician by. How are they placing those notes? How are they putting them in the grid, in the musical context? So that was putting it all together. We could take the attitude of a hip-hop producer when composing musical phrases on the guitar. We could treat a certain musical pattern as if it were a sample. Then we can use that sample as a building block of a song. We could loop that piece of music exactly the same way it would be done using audio software. In this case, we are the machine itself. This is what I like to do when I'm composing or playing live. It's very important to realize that this isn't done in a random, vague way. It's a systematic way of playing the desired phrase and also repeating and crafting the phrase further. One can even cut, copy, or paste the same way it's done on computers. I'll demonstrate this with two grooves. One is a hip-hop beat, and the other is a 6/8 groove, just to get out of the 4/4 time signature. Well, let me break the chords down first. The first one is A minor, and this is a 4-note version of that chord. Really simple, really small. The next one is an E minor 7 again. Within that chord, I'm also moving around. So you see that my little finger, my pinky, is available to do movements. So we'll get back to that later. The next one is in F major 7 add 9. Also here, I would sometimes place my pinky to turn it into an F major 7. Then we have E9 sus. It's a chord you can hold with just one finger like this. And we resolve that chord to an E7 flat 9. So those are the chords. Let me play them in the right order. 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. So those are the chords. Well, within those chords, I'm doing a kind of melody, which is actually a hammer-on or a pull-off. So with the A minor 9, I'm moving from A minor to A minor 9 like this. So I'm using the pinky to hammer on. And the way I'm playing that is almost as if I'm kind of a robot playing this. I'm trying to repeat myself before I move on to the next chord. With the E minor 7, I do the same thing, but like this. So I'm using a hammer-on to go from E minor 7, then I use my pinky to hold the 10th fret B string, which is an A. Then I move on to the next chord. That's F major 7. Again, I use my pinky. Then I go back to an E9 sus. Here I don't do any movements. I'm just playing the same rhythm with my right hand. Then to an E7 flat 9. Same rhythm. So let me show you again. As you can see, it's all downstrokes. By using the same direction, you get a sense of it being a musical fragment that's repeated. You know, it's in the same way a hip-hop producer would use a sound sample and press in that button, and you get exactly the same sound every time. Actually, I'm doing the same thing, but then on the guitar in real time. So let me show you again. Also notice that the first time I hit a chord, it's a little bit stretched out. So if you would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a slight delay, you know, and you try to use that on purpose. It's not a random thing. You're deliberately placing the chords and the notes on a certain spot to give that rich feeling. And because we do the same thing with every chord, it becomes a real arrangement that has a special flavor. This is another example of guitar sampling we used in the previous section. I'll start out by giving you the musical building blocks in the first track. Let's run through this groove step by step. First, let's start with a B minor 7 chord. But I'm using both my pick and the rest of my fingers on the right hand, like this. So check my right hand carefully. I'm playing the root, the bass note, with the pick. And two of the other notes I'm holding with my middle finger and ring finger. After I've played that, I'm playing a melody. And that melody is B, D flat, D, E, G flat, A, and B. When we get to the B, we hold a minor chord again. So that last note is also a hammer on. And that last chord I'm also playing again with a combination of the pick and my other fingers of the right hand. So I'll show you one last time. After that, we go to a G flat minor 7 chord. And we use a little bit of embellishment with a hammer on. After that, we do a downstroke on that chord, which is pretty loud. We move on to a G major 7. Also here we do another downstroke. So we go from G flat minor 7 like this to G major 7, again with the embellishment. And after that we play again G major 7, G flat minor 7, E minor 7, and then the final chord is a B flat diminished 7 with a flat 13 here. So I'll play it for you. So this step is really short. All downstrokes. G major 7, G flat minor 7, E minor 7, B flat diminished 7 flat 13. And then I'll play it again for you. That's it. I hope to have given you inspiration on how to add grooviness and a hip-hop feel to your guitar playing. This style is not only a way to enhance your guitar technique, it also gives you fresh tools to compose and improvise with. I hope to see you on the next one.